twice. Nice, piled high with toppings and cheese, please. Hot and bubbling from the oven. It's that made, baked, and served fresh in the pan pizza. At your hometown pizza, home of pan pizza. BCTV, we're giving it all we got.
Good morning. Sit on the edge of your seats while you hear Paul Watson's latest method of tackling those horrible wolf killers in the north. He says that he's going to get a squad of trained parachute jumpers, fixed-wing aircraft, and dive in with these paratroopers to put themselves between that horrible man Elliot and the wolves. I've only got one comment to make. Based on the collapse of his present media mission, I hope his crew remember to fasten their parachutes on before they jump out of the planes. Because Watson's mission this time was, in his eyes, a great success. The Los Angeles Times, the New York Times, the British daily papers. Because he, Watson, right or wrong, is a media monster. And we, and I'm guilty too, helped to create him, which is why we must have an inquest this morning on the collapse of his latest, somewhat pathetic mission. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning, Jack.
Just sit there for a minute. On the serious side of affairs, we're going to have a pretty cold look at the forestry crisis in British Columbia. You know what social credit's up to. Rip and get out. And please don't replant in case trees grow in the future. And on that particular topic, I have John Walters, professor, the director of the UBC Research Forest. And for added international flavor, Dr. Wink Sutton, chief of the silviculture research for the New Zealand Forest Service. And as you know, big New Zealand company has stepped in a big way into forestry in British Columbia. And then there's a couple of really big money-making Canadian films, and I personally find them distasteful. They're about pubescent sex. None bigger and none better than a Canadian film which is now one of the 30 biggest money makers in the history of the movies. Porky's 1 and Porky's 2. And here to tell us of his beautiful taste and how he wants you to see these things on first choice is the inimitable Canadian Harold Greenberg. But first, it's Watson after the break.
In our commercial for the new motion picture comedy Porky, we can only show you the outside.
Happened.
We're on. Jack, we're up.
I put it to you, Paul Watson, deadly seriously, that the only reason you took your pathetic little troop into that foul country and foul weather because you were afraid after you'd been refused the planes and the helicopters in some kind of conspiracy that you would lose the media attention, and that you trekked into the bush a pathetic 2 miles off the highway over a matter of 2 or 3 days. Is that not correct? You did that to hold the media in Fort Nelson.
Well, it certainly isn't correct that we only went 2 miles. We did
2 miles off the highway?
No, we were 8 kilometers up the Kachika River, as far as you possibly could go.
That was when you got there, but for the first 40 hours or something, you walked alongside the highway and finished up, Pamela Martin said, half a mile from the Alaska
All right, well, that's
highway.
the only way to get across the Kachiko, the open water. You had to go across the Liard, so that meant that we had to go 8 miles down the Liard, which is alongside the Alaska highway, so that we could cross the Liard to get over to the Kachika.
Do you realize that because of your lack of leadership and you lost control, some of these people could have died?
No, in fact, that's why we camped out our first camp only a half a mile from the highway, so that we could test the people out the first night and send them back in the morning. And in
Why
fact,
did
we
you take that guy in at all?
Actually, he was not originally part of the crew. He came up there. He was going to go in on his own, and we felt it'd be more responsible to take him in with us and have him go in on his own. I think
Renshaw said on one of Pamela's reports that you had lost, in effect, that you had lost command, and he decided to bring Peter out.
Well, I don't think that's accurate.
So there was trouble in your own little pack of 7 people.
Well, I think there were problems, and there were problems because we organized this whole thing in only a 2-week period. Basically, I'm a sailor. This is the first time I've ever launched a venture into
You'll admit
into
that
the
was a
wilderness.
bad decision to attempt. You said you could do it in 2 days, and there was no way you could survive in that country.
We had to test out the terrain. We were hoping that we'd have windswept ice. If it was windswept ice, it was frozen enough, we could have done it. Unfortunately, it wasn't windswept. It was very deep, very hard going. But what we wanted to prove here is that when we were being denied helicopters, aircraft from all over that area, that we were bound and determined to make every effort we could to get into that area. That was what we were trying to demonstrate.
That was true, and you went in ill-prepared with a poorly selected crew. You could have died easily. In fact, the tum-tum up there is that you did not spend 3 nights in the bush, that you spent 2 nights in that Indian village.
Well, that's, of course, coming from Bob Keane. Of course, he knows where we are all the time because it's questionable in a government project.
Bob Keane is the guy who owns the camp on which Elliot was based. Is that correct?
For a government project.
Did you spend any nights in the Indian village?
No, we didn't. We spent 3 nights out in the bush. And that can be
You know you could have died. If you'd got a blizzard up there, some of your crew would have been dead.
No, the first night when we tested out everybody, the only person that was wanting, he was returned back to the road, and the 4 of us left, and we had no problems in the entire time we were out there.
Your biggest skill is not as an outdoorsman, obviously. It's as a media manipulator that's witnessed your presence here this morning.
Well, I thought it was as a conservationist, but...
No, media manipulator. And I have the strong feeling, from which you've not dissuaded me, that you went in on that silly walk, ill-equipped, to keep the media, the mugs of the media, including yours truly, in and around Fort Nelson.
Well, it worked.
Do you not believe it? That's right. It worked. So you'll do anything stupid if you can keep the media watching you.
I don't think it was stupid.
Even to the extent of risking people's lives.
That's the name of our business, is risking lives. That's what we do.
When did you dream up this paratrooper bit?
Well, as soon as you are stopped by one obstacle, you got to come up with a new idea to get over the next obstacle.
And why must you come up with a new idea?
Because you got to keep the issue alive.
To get money.
Well, money's not something that we're getting. We're getting publicity, but
to
not
get
money.
continent-wide publicity. Big piece. I see a wonderful big piece in the Los Angeles Times the other day.
Yeah.
You're a great media manipulator. Do you really give a damn about the wolves, or are you not seeking glorification for Watson?
I've been involved with wildlife all my life, ever since I was 8 years old. So it's not something that I got involved with just because I wanted to get publicity.
Well, when are you going to stop the wolf hunt in the Nimkish?
We've been involved in that for a long time. People in our organization, in Project Wolf, have been involved. Mel Gregory, one of our crew members, spent 2 months up in that area.
No publicity from your activities up there.
I wasn't involved in it at the time.
Oh, are you going to attack the wolf killers in the Nimkish too?
We're going to organize Project Wolf to take on the concerns of wolves in this entire province on an ongoing basis. Yes.
What right have you got to wreck the industry and the big game hunting, which is one of the great attractions, whether you like it or not, for North Central British Columbia?
Well, what right does the British Columbia government have to spend tax money to enhance private property? This is basically what it is. The wolves are being killed in an area about 200 miles away from Fort Nelson. It is not benefiting anybody in British Columbia that these wolves are being killed, except for a small select few who have property in the Kachika and Musquaw Valley, outfitters. If they want to eliminate wolves, why aren't they doing it with their own money? Why are we paying for it?
Matter of fact, as you well know, the Americans put up $200,000 cash, that wildlife organization, to help protect their hunting in the big game preserves in that part of the world.
That's fine.
Perfectly legitimate.
But the government is spending tax dollars and using a government biologist and the government employees to carry it out.
Well, many sensible people would say that they're perfectly entitled to trim the wolf population. What about that mangy wolf that was thrown in your face? That was a good example of the condition of the wolves up in the Musquaw, I think it came from.
That was not a mangy wolf. That wolf had been frozen for a couple of months and had been thawed out.
And you lost your temper. You behaved abominably at the public meeting.
Well, I didn't think so.
Oh, yes, you did. You're all fools, you called them.
No, I didn't say that. I said if anybody disagrees with the basic laws of ecology, then they're fools. If they think they can live in this world without abiding by the laws of nature, then they're fools. That's what I said. That was misquoted to say if anybody disagrees with me, they're fools.
Certainly flipped your lid at that meeting. But
I don't think so.
Maybe you meant to flip your lid.
I don't think so.
For publicity.
I think that it was, the meeting served a good purpose. It brought a lot of people around to our side. We've now got quite a few supporters in the Fort Nelson area. We received a lot of support when we were there. We were helped out by trappers, by native people there, and by people, residents of the town. We got a lot of support.
Well, I must admit, this was tougher than your seal hunt because the whole economy closed up against you. No planes, no gas, the helicopter cancelled. Next time you can't expect local cooperation.
But one
up there,
obstacle,
can you?
every time they put an obstacle up before us, we overcame that obstacle.
Except the trek to Keen's camp.
We could not anticipate that in this province that only a few select people are able to charter helicopters and aircraft.
But you knew you'd have been rescued anyway if you'd gotten in real trouble by BCTV and some of the other media helicopters.
There was no question about being rescued because we were never lost. You can't get lost on a river.
Can't get lost half a mile off the highway or
if you believe that that's where we were.
Well, how far did you get up the Kachika Valley?
8 miles.
I think you made a fool of yourself.
Oh, I think we did a good job.
As far as the ecology is concerned, Cyril Shelford impresses me more than you with his knowledge of what has happened.
Oh, yeah.
Much more. Good old-time trapper guide. He's seen the elk disappear and come back again. He's seen the wolves disappear and come back again.
And he said that the wolves take out all these elk. I got a government publication here. You know, they hand these out right now. It says right here, predation is not an important mortality factor since the animals taken by predators tend to be young, old, sick, or crippled. All the BC government's publications say the same thing. When we read out to the public what the BC government tells us is the truth, we're told that we don't know what we're talking about.
Perhaps I'm disaffected with you this morning. I'm really not interested in the 10 sides of the story about predators.
But we should bring out, though, one thing.
You should stick to your last, and your last is on the high sea, not in north central British Columbia. You made a fool of yourself.
We should bring out one thing on this, though, Jack, is that the Kachika Enhancement Project calls for the 100% elimination of all wolves in that area and in the Muskwa Valley area. Not 80%, 100%. That's what Elliott's paper says since it's been released.
How many wolves are there in the whole of north central British Columbia?
There's an estimated population of about 6,000 wolves.
6,000 wolves. And they were going to 100% or 80%. They were going for a total of how many wolves? 80% of 400 in that valley.
They're going for 100%, not 80%. His paper, when he was on your program, his paper had not been released. Since then, his paper has been released. It says all wolves should be eliminated in the Kachika Muskwa Valley.
And what would that do to the game?
Well, I'll tell you what they want to do there is they want to then do a burnout so that they can actually remove the ecology for the moose. Then they're going to transport by air elk into that area, 80% female, 20% male, put them into the area. And I believe that Bob Keane's going to be setting out, and the other outfitters, setting out salt licks and fodder, keeping those elk in that area. Then they'll transport the big game hunters in. The guy can walk half a mile, get himself a trophy, come back, live a life of luxury while he's up there roughing it.
Sounds like a great tourist industry to me.
It sounds like that they're turning British Columbia's wilderness area into a wildlife farm for the advantage of a few rich people.
10 years ago, I stopped a plan by German interests to have a gated farm and large hunting area on the side of the Arrow Lake. As a matter of fact, Bob Williams assisted me in stopping it. No, they can't close forests for private preserve. If you've got enough money, you can go in.
But all of this is taking place on private property.
Paul, start again.
It is.
When are you going to jail?
That's a fact.
There's a couple of facts. When do you go to jail?
Well, I heard that they're trying to put a 3-mile restriction zone around Elliott, and if we approach within 3 miles of the man, we'd be arrested. I find that a bit overreactive.
I don't think you can get within 3 miles of Elliott after your performance.
We can get an aircraft, we can do it. We were only denied access
to pay it down here.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you get your money back from the helicopter pilot?
Not yet.
You'll get that back.
I hope so.
Well, he had mechanical trouble after he took off.
They all have mechanical problems. It's interesting that Bob Keane was visiting him that morning that he had mechanical problems.
Oh, I don't. I agree at once that there was a conspiracy to prevent you getting in. People protecting their own interests, right?
Well,
perfectly proper motive.
Well, you're saying it's all right to charter Okanagan helicopters or Highland helicopters if you're intent on going in and shooting something, but if you want to go in and save something, then they shouldn't give you a helicopter.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying if you want to get a helicopter in there, you better get one from down here.
They're in the business.
Pay for it and get it up there.
They're in the business of chartering helicopters, not hunting. At least that's what I thought Okanagan was involved in.
Don't sit here and slander Okanagan. I don't know what you're talking about. A helicopter company can take or refuse your charter if it wishes. I'm quite sure.
By law, they can't. But the way they got around it was by developing mechanical problems.
Yeah, but you're not exactly the most popular figure in British Columbia, and you can't expect people to say, "Yes, Mr. Watson. Yes, Mr. Watson." You're out to destroy charter flights, helicopter flights with big game hunters, and you're knocking.
And we're out to save wolves.
Save wolves, save schmoes.
And by saving wolves, saving the environment, because there is an essential prey-predator relationship within an ecosystem that has to be preserved.
You roll off these phrases, Pat phrases, just as if Patrick Moore had given you a tape recording this morning.
Pat Moore.
You know Moore of Greenpeace, used to be your buddy. I've had my say. I think Watson flopped, and I think it'd be better to retire gracefully and get back. When do you go to jail?
Oh, not for some time yet. Unfortunately.
I hope you don't go to jail. You're not a bad guy, Paul. But I'm not out to raise money for you today, I'll tell you. After the break, you have your bash at Watson. You're not serious about the paratroopers, are you?
I think that it's a realistic
How much
possibility.
money do you need for a squad of trained paratroopers? Because you've never jumped out of a plane in your life, have you?
Sure I have.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
When?
Oh, I've been done it a couple times in the
Couple
past.
of times. So you're now looking for trained paratroopers who will go in unarmed, face grizzly bears, and stand between Elliot and these wolves.
We're not afraid of anything that we can find in the wild.
You're not?
Except for John Elliott.
Except for John Elliot. Okay.
He might be a bit trigger happy.
What's that? You're going to thin out the weakest of your crew as soon as you get in.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Good morning.
Go ahead.
Yes, Paul?
Yes.
I've always backed you for your activities in the sea, but doggone it, I'm one of your so-called greedy capitalist hunters, and you've made me angry. If you're such an authority on who's telling the truth and who's lying, then how come that mangy wolf that you say was frozen for 2 months was plainly seen on the boob tube dripping fresh blood when he was thrown down on the floor out of his mouth? Now, I tell you what, in October, I'm going to go up there and hunt and claim my moose. You and your wolf pack interfere with me, mister. You're not going to sit down on your behinds for months because I'm a crack shot.
Thank you, sir. Found a friend.
That tells you the kind of mentality we're dealing with, people who are going to shoot at human beings as well as moose. If that's what he wants to do is threaten my life, then that's fine. But that wolf was frozen because we analyzed the blood. It was watery. It had been thawed.
Where did you analyze the blood?
We took blood samples. One of our members...
In Fort Nelson?
Yeah.
Go ahead, please. Where are you?
Hello.
That's you.
Yeah. Paul, these so-called environmentalists should know that man is the only natural predator to wolves, and unless they're kept in check, then you're the ones that are throwing nature's balance off.
500 wolves are killed every year in this province by trappers, by hunters, by Indian people and everything. It's unprecedented that they shoot wolves from aircraft in areas where there's no effect on livestock at all, which is the Kachika-Musqueam Valley. Never before has any government proposed a management program that is called for the elimination of an entire wolf pack.
They haven't called for the elimination.
Elliott's paper says 100% elimination.
Okay, 400 out of 6,000.
Out of select areas. The Kachika Valley, 100% elimination.
In there, and neither do you, and nobody knows how many elk are in there either. The method of counting is strictly
but
on
his paper's calling for elimination.
Extrapolation.
Extermination.
Go ahead, please.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, I was just wondering, since we can transplant bears and everything else, why can't we transplant the wolves? Thank you.
Where the hell are you going to put the wolves? Nobody wants the wolves. Go ahead, please, except Paul. Go ahead, please.
Yes, Peter Schlegel. I support Mr. Watson very much, and I wasn't sure what the last caller said, but I do support having maybe these wolves transported somewhere else.
I have a good idea. Why not transport them to downtown Vancouver? A good idea.
I think they're doing fine just where they are. There's a good prey-predator relationship in that area, and they should be left alone.
You don't believe that wolves can wipe out an elk pack as they did in the Tweedsmuir Forest?
I think they keep the elk. I don't believe that story, Jack. I don't believe it at all.
I don't believe you're an expert. Go ahead, please. I don't believe I am either.
I am an expert on ecological principles, and using that, I do not believe that story.
I'm an expert on ethical principles, and I shouldn't really have you on at all this morning. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, good morning. I was just interested in one thing, and that seems everybody, even yourself, Mr. Webster, who definitely has very little use for the wolf, has described this wolf that was killed and thrown in front of the TV cameras as mangy.
Yeah.
Now, how can this mangy animal that doesn't really look that well fed be targeted as the reason that the big game hunting or industry is suffering?
Well, that's a silly question, isn't it, Paul?
Well, I don't have any proof that it's mangy. I don't know who said it was mangy.
Well, no, just the last couple of callers did just too.
It was mangy. I saw the damn thing on television. The most unhealthy looking carcass I've ever
Yeah,
saw.
I'd been dead for 2 months. You'd be unhealthy too if you were dead for 2 months.
Not if I'm in a cold deep freeze. Not if I'm frozen at 30 below. I'd look fine. I might look better. Go ahead, please.
Yes, hello. Paul?
Yes.
Yes, I'd just like to say thank you for what you're doing, and I think it's wonderful. I do agree with Jack on one point, though, and that is do get your equipment elsewhere. Don't try to get it from where you're...
You won't get it up
save the
there.
Yeah,
wolf.
it's not safe up there.
You know, if you
Just
get
what-
everything in Vancouver or something...
Do you want to become a paratrooper, ma'am? It'll only cost you $10,000.
Okay.
Cut it off in case she says yes. Prince George, go ahead, please.
Yeah, hello, Jack.
Yeah.
Why are you doing such unbiased reporting with this gentleman?
Well, I'm being a little bit obnoxious this morning because he made
You're a
such...
reporter. I've been watching you now for 3
I'm
or
an
4 years.
interviewer. Just you mind your own business. I'm what I choose to be at any particular time. And if somebody's got, in case Paul gets a swollen head, which is endemic to the species, somebody's got to bring him back to reality. You made a fool of yourself this time.
I don't think so.
One more thing, Jack.
Yes?
When you interviewed that gentleman from Victoria, he told you that $360 million was brought into this province, right?
No, I did not.
What did he tell you?
A couple of $1 million, or 10 million, not $360 million. Go ahead from Revelstoke, Burton, isn't it?
Burton, that's right.
Is that near Revelstoke?
I beg your pardon?
Are you near Revelstoke?
Yes, about 100 miles south.
Go ahead.
I want to say 2 things, please. First of all, I want to commend our friend there for the way he conducted himself throughout this. I think that he has been brought to the verge of almost violent anger many times, but he controlled himself very well, and I'm proud of him. And I think we need people like him to keep these issues alive and really keep the country interested in the population of many of the different varieties of animals, and right now particularly the wolf. And if you don't have a man with that kind of determination, your project will go nowhere. That's how some of these things have been lost to the world, because there was nobody with kindly, loving determination, and I'm proud of this man. The second thing I would like to bring to your attention is that living in the mountains as we do, we know that the greatest harm being done to the animals is overhunting. And for instance, just with the deer, everybody is allowed to shoot 2 deer, whether they need them or not, whether they want them or not. And my husband, who is an ardent hunter, is very much against this. So the
Thank you,
government
ma'am.
has to change
You
some
found
of
a
their
friend.
hunting policies.
You found a friend, Paul. Send him money. After the break, more calls to Paul. Paul, if you want conservation in the high seas, I'll give you one. The latest facts about the salmon in British Columbia are horrifying. If the entire fleet went out in one day, it could catch 240,000 tons. The total quota for this year is 35,000 tons. If we keep this up, we'll have no salmon and no herring. There's one you might tackle, but that's too tough.
No, I don't think so. It is a serious problem, and we've been
I was
saying all
shocked
along.
yesterday when Debani gave me the figures.
Oh yeah, well I agree with those figures. You know, I've been saying all along that if we can't save the oceans, then we're basically in big trouble.
But I think it'd be a tough job to tackle what salmon fishermen are left trying to scrape a living in the waters and on the high seas in BC. But that's a much more serious thing than the bleeding wolves.
I think they're equal in seriousness.
From Fort Nelson, go ahead to Paul Watson.
Yes, I'd like to ask, I am from Fort Nelson, and I live just outside of town, and in the McConaughey Creek Agricultural Subdivision, and I'd like to ask Mr. Watson, I live out there, and this fall, we had the wolves in our yard. We could hear them singing all night, and the next day we'd go and visit our neighbor. We found out that they got their dogs. My husband was trapping the year before. He knew that the wolves were mangy. I saw them.
So how is this enhancement project in the Kachika going to benefit you? When
Just a minute. Can she shoot these wolves without you complaining?
I think that if a wolf interferes directly, then that is a...
If
yes.
a wolf is hanging around your ranch or hanging around your kids or within 5 miles of the place or howling at night, I'd go out and shoot them if I could,
Dr.
wouldn't you?
McTaggart-Cowan said that's the only justification for it, and I agree with him. But these wolves that they're killing are 200 miles away from Fort Nelson, and they are not having any impact on livestock whatsoever.
Well, that's what you say, but they certainly have an impact on the herds, the big game herds.
I think they have a very positive impact on those big game herds.
Ma'am, tell me what you think of Nelson.
Pardon me?
Tell me what you think of Watson.
I don't think he's really, I think he's not doing what he should be doing. I think he is exactly what you called him earlier, a media manipulator.
Media monster, I called him. Media monster.
I think he is a leech on society.
A leech on society.
Oh.
Keep going. A media monster, a leech, yeah, publicity seeker of the lowest order, right?
What?
A publicity seeker.
I think so, yes, and I think that he's just trying to get out of being one of the rest of the people.
Oh, he's an individualist, you know.
Well, he is, yes, most definitely.
But he's misguided, isn't he?
I don't think he really knows what the situation is. He is blaming Bob Keane, saying that Bob Keane is a friend of Tony Brummett, and so on and so forth. Well,
Bob Keane said
what?
that.
They are protecting our interests. Paul Watson said he was going to go in there and shepherd the wolves.
Oh, that was
You
stupid.
cannot call a wolf.
You can't shepherd wolves.
It wasn't to be taken
Come here,
literally.
nice wolf, nice wolf, nice wolf. We'll protect you from Elliot. Come here, come here.
Shepherding means protecting, and that's what we were going to do.
Thanks, ma'am. Go ahead from Edgewater, 100 miles from Vernon.
Yes, Jack. I'd like to say a few things regarding your wolf program.
Say them quickly.
I'm from northern Alberta. I'm an old trapper, and I'm an Indian. I think if we let these animals in our areas, respective areas, and the people within that area look after their own affairs, you know, they will control themselves, especially if it goes into the trapper's area. The trapper will control those wolves, and nature will look after themselves in its own respective area.
So you say Watson's right?
No, I'm not saying Watson's right. If Watson's a sailor, then I think he should be sailing. But I think we should have other people in that area who are adaptable to the country and are not susceptible to freezing to death, look after the wolves in their area, and we will look after our own little area down here in Edgewood.
Goodbye. Do you have wolves in Edgewood?
No, just a few coyotes.
Few coyotes. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Morning.
Mr. Webster and Mr. Watson, I'd like to thank you very much for putting the subject on the table. I mean on the television so everybody can see and think about it. In my opinion, wildlife, the Canadian wildlife is actually an asset of the Canadian people, Canadian company, Canadian life. As a part of the economy, one has to look at the whole thing as a part of the whole Canadian economy.
Ma'am, do you approve of Watson's tactics or not?
If I approve of it, the other part is the mercenaries, what they have done to the buffalo, what they have done to the elephant. Let's take the whole look at and elaborate on it. What happened when the mercenary was allowed to do anything to the buffalo and the elephant? Next one is the wolf. Who is the biggest predator anyway? Can we see the forest from the trees? Please talk about this one in this context. Thank you.
It's time you had a say, Paul.
Well, Jack, I think that our campaign was successful. It made this into an international issue. We learned a lot up there. We got a lot of support from that area, and we also learned enough so that we can go back and I think be a lot more successful.
I agree with you. I think your shenanigans and your capers and your lack of leadership and your disasters will not be examined at long range by your international bleeding hearts, and that it will bring you lots of money.
Oh, we don't really raise very much money on this issue. All the money that was spent on this was raised in British Columbia.
What, nothing from the guy in New York? I
No.
always forget his name.
Cleveland Amory?
What happened to Bo Derek?
Well, they're members of our organization,
She
but
didn't come up.
She wasn't supposed to.
What about Bridget Bardot?
I never promised her.
What about George C. Scott?
Never promised them.
But that's why we were up there. We wanted to see Bo naked in the snow, cavorting with a wolf.
This is a British Columbia issue, and the money came from British Columbia, and it was British Columbians who were up there involved with this.
Okay, well, Paul, I got it off my chest this morning, and you got some more publicity, so we're both happy. But you don't give a damn what anybody says about you.
No, not really.
You don't.
Only what they're concerned. Their concerns for the environment are what I'm concerned about. If people wish to protect the environment in British Columbia, they got to get involved.
They got to go your way.
And I think that we're getting them involved. One side or another, we're getting them involved.
Yeah, one of these days I might even get Brummett on the program to answer some intelligent questions, but I'm not so sure about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, two distinguished foresters, one from British Columbia and one from New Zealand. We'll be doing a series of broadcasts as by happenstance on the forestry crisis and the mining crisis in British Columbia. But next, my two distinguished guests after the break. There isn't any argument that in British Columbia we have, and we always have some kind of crisis, but a more serious crisis than normal in BC. One is only to look at the actions of the provincial government on its restraint programs. They've closed down the forestry training unit. They have laid off 400 odd people in the forestry department. There are guidelines which appear to have been accepted by the government from COFI, the Council of Forest Industries, which say that government log scalers are a nuisance, that the industry can police itself better and more efficiently by itself, that the operators of forest licenses should be freed from the detailed scrutiny of ministry because the vast majority are willing and competent operators. In other words, there's a big brouhaha about reforestation. You fly over British Columbia, you think there are endless trees. Maybe there aren't. To talk about forestry both in British Columbia and, as it happens, New Zealand, I have with me this morning Professor John Walters, who is the director of the UBC Research Forest. And he is attending the Association of BC Foresters Convention in Vancouver just now, professional foresters. And here is Dr. Wink Sutton, who is chief of the silviculture research for the New Zealand Forest Service. I think I'll have a word with you first, Dr. Sutton. One doesn't think of New Zealand as a vast area for harvesting trees. I presume I'm wrong.
Well, about a quarter of New Zealand is covered with trees. About half is farmland, and the other quarter is just wasteland, high mountains and things. But all our forests, our production forests, doesn't come from our indigenous forests, but from planted trees, mostly radiata pine, which is a Californian tree. And our second most important tree, that only accounts for about 5% of our wood, is Douglas fir, which is from the Pacific Northwest.
From the Pacific Northwest.
Yes.
And are you a competitor of ours in any way in international markets?
Well, not at the moment. We do compete in the Australian market and in the Japanese market. In the future, though, we will be a bigger competitor because we're going to increase production by about threefold by the early part of the next century.
How did your government handle the granting of, the sale or the acquisition of timber? Is yours private? It's a free enterprise industry in New Zealand, is it?
In part, of the exotic forest, about half is owned by the government, about a quarter by companies, and about a quarter by private individuals and corporations.
But on your commercial forests, what about them?
Well, that is commercial forest. Only talking about commercial
exotic.
Forest. Exotic forest.
That covers your Douglas fir and your
yes,
pine.
Yes, Douglas fir, yes.
And then you have an indigenous tree which you try to...
Yeah, well, we've got many indigenous trees, but...
What's the famous one?
Well, the kauri, the New Zealand kauris, but they're almost extinct. There's only a very, very small cut of kauri.
And if I'm a lumberman in New Zealand, how do I bid at auction for my timber rights?
Well, the first thing most of the private forest is completely under the control of the company or the individual. They can do whatever they like on their forests. There's only a few town and country planning things that may prohibit them from planting trees in certain areas. But the state forest is sold under long-term license, which is that goes up for you bid for that, and that's either a stumpage sale, in other words, sold standing, or a log sale. And we also have short-term sales, but we don't sell. We don't have tree farm licenses.
As such.
As such.
What about reforestation? Is that done by the government or by the companies on instructions from the government?
Almost all the tree plantations that we've got are replanted, and we have a very large program extending the area being planted as well.
So that's methodical, 100% replanting in all the areas?
Yes, very intensive, very intensive management. Not just planting, but also tending of the trees.
How long for a crop of your Douglas fir and your pine?
Douglas fir is between 30 and 50 years, and radiata pine is between 25 and 30 years.
Good. Many people does it employ the New Zealand forest industry?
About 35,000 people.
That's pretty big.
Yes, it is.
Not quite as big as BC.
No.
That's in sawmills as well as
Yes,
logging operations.
that's the forest industries as such, pulp and paper mills, sawmills.
Does it sound good to you, their system? It's more orderly than ours, is it not?
Apparently, from our history anyway, I would say so.
Well, Professor Walters, how do we stand at the moment? Everywhere I turn, I see prediction of 30,000 jobs are going to be lost. I see no cooperation between the federal government and the provincial government on reforestation. And I see industry wanting to remove government controls. What can you tell me about the state of affairs in BC at the moment?
It's a mess. I think it's nationally and provincially, it's the most serious situation that we've ever had to face in Canada. I think it's that serious because we are talking about the Canadian industry. It's not a fly-by-night industry, it's not a minor industry, it's the Canadian industry in every respect. You know, people think that Canadian agriculture is a big deal. The fuel industry, the oil, the gas,
the mining,
and the coal, that's a big deal. And fisheries. Fisheries is worth $1 billion converted. We're talking about an industry which is $23 billion to Canada in converted products.
How much would that be from British Columbia alone?
Half, about $7 billion it's worth to BC alone. We employ about 110,000 people and up to about 280,000 people learn their living in British Columbia directly or indirectly from the forest industry. So we're not kidding when we say the situation is serious now, and it's serious because of timber supply problems which are imminent and drastic, and of course a certain loss of competitiveness, especially in the coastal forest industry.
Why? Tree farm licenses?
The loss of competitiveness. Well,
no, you're talking about wages and
the
export
terrain.
Markets.
That's right, and the fact that we operate from very rugged terrain, even far more rugged than they operate on in New Zealand, and I think all of our competitors operate from easier terrain, and the terrain must be a significant factor in our cost.
Very basically, 20 years ago, I remember the Bull of the Woods, Gordon Gibson Sr., and I remember all the scandals we had and the slicing up of the pie on Vancouver Island and elsewhere in tree farm licenses. And the dogma in those days was that we had unlimited timber and all we had to do was to get access to it and we would never run out. Was that a bunch of hogwash?
It was incorrect, yes. Partly because we miscalculated the volumes of timber which would be economically available to the industry. And that comes back to what I was saying in the first place, to do with the coastal competitiveness. We had hoped, and the Ministry of Forest had hoped, that there would be some new technology developed in the years following the time that you're talking about, which would enable us to get the timber off the mountains economically. And of course we can get it off, but we can't get it off and make a profit. And that's the whole point of it.
In other words, balloon logging, helicopter logging, all these fancy things they experimented with are no good on a mass basis.
It doesn't look like it, no. And we can't see anyway any technology developing which will do the job for us. And what we have to do is essentially what they're doing in New Zealand, in the southern pine and South Africa and Australia, is to get into plantation management on lands which we can operate mechanically.
I thought we had plantation management. Oh, you mean a real plantation?
Yeah, we have lots of plantations, but not enough plantations.
And no management?
No management, I would say. That's the sad thing. It's no use planting a tree if you're not prepared to follow up on it. It's just like your garden. If you don't go out and prepare the soil to sow your carrots, you don't get much of a crop. If you do sow your carrots and you don't weed it, you don't get much of a crop, and so on down the line. It's the same for trees.
Yes, here was I dealing with Debani yesterday on the fishing industry. The incredible facts, if correct, that we're just about out of our salmon resource and that the fleet could catch 8 times our allowable catch in one day if the fish were there. Now you tell me this morning that our forestry industry is in an unplanned state of neglect.
It's been mismanaged since we've had it.
More with Professor Walters and Dr. Sutton after the break. Was New Zealand, Dr. Sutton, never in such an unholy mess with lack of proper management of its forests?
Well, I think we were a wee bit more fortunate than BC's been. At the turn of the century, we had so much forest that everyone thought it was inexhaustible. We had very few people, and the farming industry saw the land which the forest was on as ideal farmland. So we just felled the forest, burnt it, cleared it, burnt it, and then sowed grass seed for sheep and cattle production, or mainly sheep. We had some very far-sighted forefathers, though, who foresaw that we'd be running out of wood somewhere around about the 1960s. So from the mid-20s and early 30s, we planted a large area of exotic forests, and that now is the industry which sustains us.
And it's plantation managed?
It's all plantation
and
managed.
then if somebody doesn't replant, it can be instantly seen that they haven't replanted?
Oh yes, but the industry is very aware of the problem. They know they've got to replant.
Well, what the hell's wrong with industry here? Because I'm going to quote you, Professor Walters. A frequently heard reply to the question of reforestation is that there is simply no money. Walters, so-and-so, says that's a fatuous argument. It's absurd. They haven't got their priorities straight. They're concerned with their own tenure rather than the welfare of the forest. It's pretty outspoken in that. So now answer my question. Who is responsible for the mismanagement of the forest?
The public.
Oh, no, that's too specious.
Oh, no, it isn't. They own the land, they own the timber.
Well, we're responsible for the mismanagement of everything.
All right, then.
We're the mugs.
All right, if you live in an apartment, Jack, and your roof leaks, who fixes it?
A landlord.
Yes, well, you're the landlord in the forest. You better fix the forest.
I won't accept that, Dr. Walters.
It's a great big public rip-off, and the public have got to be made to understand it. They've historically been apathetic, they've been greedy. Provincial governments right across Canada and the federal governments, that's a total of 11 governments, have gang-raped our forests. There's nothing else to say other than that. And I think it's high time that the public understood that the bill is theirs and they've got to meet it. There's no one else going to meet it. The only other way would be for industry to meet it if the public will relax their hold on the timber and the land to give the industry the incentive they need. There's no alternative to that.
You're giving me my answer. The forests have been gang raped by 11 governments. Which is the worst? Social Credit in Victoria?
No. There's very little to choose between them, but I would say that across Canada, the BC governments, regardless of party, have shown a far more awareness of the forestry situation. And while it's bad here, it's a hell of a mess in the rest of Canada.
All right. In BC, 70,000 hectares, I hate the word, but 70,000 something was planted last year, but we logged 140,000 hectares.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Oh, yes.
That there are 70,000 hectares we didn't replant?
Oh, yes.
We're crazy.
Well, that's nothing.
What do you mean nothing?
Well, across Canada, there's 26 million hectares across Canada. And if you work that out, that's a strip of land 3 kilometers wide around the Earth at the equator. In BC alone, there's 640,000 hectares never been planted as a minimum figure.
Never been planted?
No.
Who the hell's responsible?
You.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No, I refuse to accept that. Mac and Blow have been there for years. Fletchers are in now. They bought Crown, didn't they? Right?
Oh, yeah.
Canadian Forest Products. They're always prating and running little commercials, Mac and Blow, about their lovely replanting programs. Is it garbage?
No, they are doing something. I think, in a sense, the coastal industries especially, under the tree farm legislation, have really done more than they were required to do under the regulations.
But not enough.
But not enough.
And for the government to say that they don't know the money is what did you call it? Fatuous argument.
Yes, but the money is in the provincial and federal treasuries. We would need in BC to do the right job and compete with these fellows in New Zealand, maybe give them a big headache. We would need about $0.6 billion a year in British Columbia. That's a lot of money compared to the 90 million we spent this year.
600 million.
That's right. But the unemployment insurance bill is $1.6 billion. We blow $1 billion on human resources, whatever that is. That's why I think if there is a rape centre, it should be sent over to forestry.
Forestry Rape Crisis Centre in Waterland's office.
It's getting clobbered, and we only have a very, very short period now to adjust the situation, to correct it. And we can do it because we have timber reserves still, which will tide us over until the new forests come on stream. But we must do it now.
The Council of Forest Industries, they're the big boys, aren't they? You know all these big boys. They want to relegate Ministry of Forest managers and foresters to resource auditors who merely check the performance of logging operations. Is that a good idea?
Yes, it would be if the industry had the incentive to do the job in the first place, but they don't have it.
Look, Mike Apsey in that same article advised his entire staff last November to give top priority on requests to cut timber, smooth out and speed up requests to cut timber. Maybe we're overcutting, aren't we?
Yes, we're overcutting.
But they do that so they can get revenue into the government because the revenue's broke.
That's
the government's
right.
Broke.
Yes.
So that's more short-sightedness.
That's right. That's your government.
It's your government too, and you're the guy that knows it, not me. And all operators of TFLs. Oh, by the way, have you ever had anybody sent to jail for graft and corruption in forest management agencies? No.
No.
Well,
I don't think so.
Forget I mentioned that. They should be freed from detailed scrutiny and allowed to manage the forest licenses themselves. Is that a good thing?
I think it could be under the right legislation. If the land is dedicated to woodland management to certain standards, I'm quite sure that the professional foresters will do the job that's required, as they do it in other...
As a matter of fact, here's one you'll approve. This is from Kofi. Maybe you suggested it. Government personnel must adopt a level of trust in industry documents which carry the seal of a registered forester.
That's reasonable.
Is that reasonable?
Yes.
Like an accountant?
Professional ethics
will
will cover
God forgive me, a lawyer.
You said it.
What about privatizing log scaling, timber cruising and nurseries?
Well, they're only, it's really only a bunch of band-aids. We still have to grow the wood. I mean, we're not going to have the wood to scale if we don't get cracking in the woods. That's the point.
How much time have we got?
Well, it's hard to say, but certainly within the next 5 years, we'll start running out of timber regionally. Different regions will start to shut down mills and do exactly what the federal and the provincial governments have told us about. For 15 years now, the association has been going after this story. In the last 5 years, both the provincial and the federal governments have accepted the story. And they now carry the message that towns will decay, massive unemployment will be created, mills will be shut down if we don't do it. And we're looking at 5 years in some areas, and subsequent to that, it will happen at an accelerating rate. I think that within the decade, there'll be a loss of around 68,000 jobs in the industry.
In BC?
A total. That's indirect and direct
in BC
jobs.
Alone?
Oh, yeah.
68,000?
Yes.
And yet last year, Lalonde came up with 130 million for replanting. We'd have got 40% of that, but the Socreds wouldn't go for it.
No, they wouldn't. And I think
my government is stupid.
Yes, I would say so. But of course, it shouldn't be that difficult. There should be a fixed amount that comes from the federal government because they get the bulk of the revenue.
Yeah.
A fixed amount without strings and without any uncertainty. And that's the problem today we face. 1 minute we've got it, and the next minute we haven't. 2 years ago in BC, the Socred government started a very, very ambitious five-year program, a series of 5-year programs, aiming to spend much more money on forestry. Within 2 years, that had collapsed. This year, we're spending $90 million in total, as against
600 million.
Well, they never went that high. That's my figure. But I think the figure this year should have been about 250 million.
What is it?
It's 90. That's 83, 84.
That's dreadful, isn't it? Well, at least you've opened my eyes this morning, because I'm sure that 99% of the people of British Columbia don't realize what idiots they are.
Fair enough.
Taking your summation. Well, I don't see any hope. Then nothing will be done this year. There'll be nothing in Curtis's budget to help. Except he'll give the industry, he'll lay off the BCGE log scalers, and he'll probably give Kofi what they want.
Well, I think the public has to support the government's restraint program insofar as it doesn't interfere with matters of priority. And the industry is surely the priority. And I gave you a figure of 68,000 people would be laid off. That's going to cost, that's laid off in BC, but that will cost the federal government about $0.6 billion in unemployment insurance.
You would take
And
that.
that's exactly the same amount of money, I'm saying.
Yeah, it's for reforestation.
Would not only preserve the present 280,000 jobs that the industry supports, but also it would create another 100,000 jobs. And you can't get better a business arrangement than that. No government would ever do better than that.
Take the UIC money and apply it to reforestry for whatever you can.
The problem is that we've got this jurisdictional shambles between the two levels of government.
And it's all our fault.
It's your fault.
It's not your fault.
No.
You haven't spoken out enough, not often enough to the ordinary people of BC.
That's right. I think we need Bo Derek in the woods.
Not about it. If Bo Derek would make the statements, we'd have it on every second day. Listen, a pleasure to have you here. Why do they call you Wink?
It's a nickname.
Wink?
No.
Wink Sutton and John Walters. Let's keep in touch. Matter of fact, you can phone me this afternoon with some nasty questions for the big shot Adam Zimmerman who's coming on tomorrow. Maybe you can help me shaft him. He must be to blame too.
No, I think he's a friend.
Friend of yours? What else? We've invited Waterland to come. We'll stuff your thesis down his throat.
Please do. I have.
And he'll smile and giggle and take his cuddly teddy bear. The one he takes to legislature, remember? And next we're going to have a giggle at Porky. Porky's! Harold Greenberg, the $125 million man after the break. First Choice gave us a freebie the other week, and I watched a disgusting picture called First Blood. Thank goodness none of my grandchildren were in the house. It was an appalling, horrible, horrifying picture. I have a man from First Choice here, but before we look at him, I want to show you a little clip and snippet of one of the biggest moneymakers in the history of movies, a Canadian one, Porky's. And we're just going to give you a little taste of the lack of taste in Porky's. Morning, Harold Greenberg.
Good morning, Jack.
I want to shake the hand of a guy whose picture grossed, despite its lack of taste and being concerned as with pubescent porn, pubescent soft porn. How much did your picture gross?
$125 million.
$125 million. Isn't that fabulous? How much of it did you get to keep?
A lot.
A lot. Is this a Canadian-made movie?
Yes, it is.
Do you mean to say that we've got no Mounties in this movie?
No, no Mounties.
We just got little titillating porn, is that right?
No, that's not what it is. I think the movie, reason for its success, is everybody saw a little bit of their youth in Porky's.
Speak for yourself, Harold Greenberg. I was brought up a Presbyterian in the United Free Church of Scotland. Such things are neither talked about, nor is it admitted that they exist.
Admitted is the key word there.
Now, was there a star in Porky?
No, really, there was no major stars. The story and the enjoyment of the film were the stars.
Astral Bellevue Pathy Inc. Is that your film company?
That's
How much
our company.
payola did you get from the federal government, like all Canadian movie makers moved on tax dodges, shelters, and grants to make Porky?
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you. Nothing.
Have you not had your share of that?
Yes, in other films, not in this film.
Which ones did you get your share of lolly in from the taxpayer?
Well, we did a variety of film. Remember, we're in the film business for many years. We got involved in Apprenticeship with Diddy Kravitz. We got involved.
Good movie.
Thank you very much. Lies My Father Told Me.
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it.
No.
The story on Bill Stevenson's
A Man Called Intrepid.
Man Called Intrepid.
Have you done that one?
Yes, we did that 6 hours for NBC. We did Mary and Joseph in Israel. We've done
That's where Mary and Joseph came from.
That's right. We went to the original location.
Glad to see you've done your research. Right.
And we just, we did Pygmalion with Peter O'Toole and Margot Kidder. We did, we just finished a film out in Alberta called Draw with Kirk Douglas and James Colburn. We finished Porky's 2. And Jack, just for you, we're going to do Porky's 3.
I don't want to part in your damn movie.
I think you would make a great Porky's.
Take a shot. Take a shot. Something's calling the kettle black. And here you are now going to pour all your hard-earned money down the tube in the collapse of First Choice.
Well, There's got to be justice somewhere there.
No, really. I was really quite angry when we got this freebie the other day, and I saw this gruesome movie, First Blood, made up at Hope. You know the one I mean?
That's right, absolutely.
Bodies and daggers and blood and guts and killing and slaughter and whatnot. That's not suitable to go into a decent home with the youngsters.
Well, let me put it this way. The diversification in program includes films of that nature. There is a market for films of that nature, as well as there is a film for
But
Disney.
they show the film for endlessly for hour after hour, morning, noon, and night.
Well, how would you be? Are you watching it morning, noon, and night?
I watch the promos, and I see what times the things are on again. First Blood at 9 a.m., First Blood at 1 p.m., First Blood at 3 p.m., First Blood at 9 p.m.
Why don't you talk about all the other films that are coming on? Tootsie, Gandhi.
Tootsie, I've seen it.
Gandhi.
Gandhi, I'd rather see it in the movies. Get a night out.
Well, why didn't you go out and see it in the movies?
Tell me this, though. What's your rate of cancellation? About 11% a month?
No, that's dropped drastically. The first year, in the introduction of a new technology, a new marketing concept, a new programming system for viewers, there was certainly a great amount of turnoff, and it did not exceed 9%. But that's going to change.
If I put my thing on Channel 4 and tickle the dial a little bit, I can almost bring up pay TV for free.
You wouldn't do that with your ancestry?
Yes, I would. I'm not Scotch for nothing. But you can always get pay TV for free, and there's nothing illegal about twisting your dial on Channel 4, is there?
Well,
how much would it cost me to make a gimmick whereby I could get your service without paying it?
I don't know.
Oh, what happened to C Channel here?
Well, C Channel didn't get enough subscribers.
Yeah.
Obviously, the programming that they had did not augment the original programming that was being able to see in other pay television.
You all thought it was going to be a license to print money, and it ain't worked out that way.
No, we never. I think that it would have been certainly much more successful at the beginning if the CRTC hadn't given the amount of licenses they give on the new technology.
Far better to give it to semi-monopolies so they can make a buck.
Far better to give it to a semi-monopoly if that's the way to bring in a new technology.
I'd agree. What about Super Channel? It's coming in now, too. You complain about that, I presume.
Well, I don't complain about anybody. Our basic course right now is to go make First Choice a desirable investment for the people to buy.
Have you any commitments as First Choice and license holders, and you'll probably make it, to put money back into Canadian productions?
Absolutely.
What is the commitment?
Well, it's really the most unbelievable commitment. 45 cents of every dollar of revenue is to be put back into the creation or acquisition of Canadian programming.
After profit?
No. Off the top.
You can't survive on that.
That's correct. It's a very difficult thing. The only way we think we can achieve it is we got enough confidence that generating our funds to Canadian production that has international values and can be financed on an international basis is the only route to go.
Do you still carry the Playboy movies in BC? I don't know. I'm not allowed to look at them.
You're not allowed to?
No.
Geez, you're really tough.
Yeah, I haven't got it. I haven't got cable.
Oh, you don't have cable?
I have cable, but I don't have First Choice.
Well, I think what you should do is really, if you want, I can stake you for the first year's investment in
I might manage to borrow the money.
Oh, okay, good.
But you see, with all the cable stations, there are lots of movies on the channels right now. We just have to wait a couple of years to see them all.
Well, yeah, but remember...
With commercials.
That's correct. First of all, in the second year, you're going to see movies a lot faster on paid television than you saw in the first year. They are uncut. You see them total. You've got a greater diversification of programming. Am I doing a good enough spiel for...
Not very bright.
No? Well, I'm trying.
I was reading my notes to see if there was anything provocative I could put to you to try and brighten you up.
Oh, okay.
But 45 cents on every dollar off the top, you've got to make movies.
We got to make Canadian programming.
Canadian programming?
Yes.
Well, I don't know. I mean, apart from Porky's, what else we really got in this country?
Oh, I think we've got a lot of other assets of programming.
I can generally look at a Canadian movie or a Canadian production. Before I know who made it, I can say, that's Canadian.
That's correct.
That's Canadian. That's amateurish. That's Canadian.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. Maybe you haven't seen very much.
Maybe. No, I'm talking about what I see on television.
That is correct.
You know, it's clumsy, it's awkward, it's amateurish, it looks like a 1938 British movie.
In a lot of movies, that is quite true.
But not you and Porky. You have all these dirty scenes in the shower. Yeah.
Not dirty scenes.
It's soft porn.
It's not even soft porn.
All right, tell me about the Playboy channel. Is it still on?
The Playboy is on, and basically what now we're looking at the entire scene in relating to Playboy product and relating to other type of product. But Playboy is still on at the moment.
Okay, best offer I've had all year. I'm going to star in Porky 3 next year for Harold Greenberg, and I'll do it for a small sum like $10 million. Your questions to Harold Greenberg, if you care. If not, you can sit here while I do a free-for-all, and you can see a pro at work after the break. Stanley Blackwood wants to know why he says it's about $8 for pay TV in the States and $16 here.
Very simple. Number one is it's not $8 in the States. HBO's price is $11 US. Second of all is part of our price structure is the 45% commitment to Canadian content. If we can get a relaxation of that particular portion, the price will come down in Canada.
But you want our money for profits.
No, I want our money to build a healthy industry.
But, you know, you talk about the media communications revolution and all the rest of it. The fact remains that somebody's going to come out with a direct broadcasting satellite, and everybody but the news networks will be dead.
Remember, I'm in the programming business. Whatever form of technology comes about, we'll be there to provide programming for it.
That's right. Pap for the masses. That's your expertise, Harold Greenberg, isn't it?
Yes.
Dreadful, man. How old are you, by the way?
54.
54. I thought you were about 60.
Thanks.
Go ahead to Harold Greenberg.
Mr. Greenberg.
Yes.
I've had first choice since day one, and I'm today hooking up Super Channel. And
illegally?
No, I'm hooking it up legally. And I'm going to compare the two over the next 60 days and just see, because I've really seriously been thinking about canceling first choice. I've noticed that the movies that we're getting, the ones that are run over and over again, are movies that are really of second rate, they're of low quality, the movies that I want to see, and would maybe like to see twice or only run once or twice in a whole month.
Well, let me just say that the introduction of paid television created a very big problem for us because television buys films 2 years in advance. This coming year, you will see the list of films, and you're starting to see them this month, next month, and all the others, is the finest films on and they will have a better repeat factor. What we're doing is extending and announced the policy this morning, and Jack, I'll announce it here, is that there will be a new film every day for the next year, which will cut the repeat factor down. The scheduling will be a lot easier to do because films like Gandhi and Tootsie and Trading Places and all those films are now going to be available. They were not available the first year of operation. And now there's the diversification of where we now have ESPN Sports, which further diversifies the programming. So the introduction of competitive systems is not a concern. Our concern is to satisfy you, the subscriber.
And that is his only concern. He sits up at night thinking how he can make you happy.
I have a bouquet for him, too.
You have a bouquet?
I have a bouquet.
I don't want to hear that.
With Inspector Gadget, I think it is one of the most fantastic series that has ever been run.
Thank you, that's enough.
Geez, and we created it and funded it, so we must be doing something right.
What, a cartoon?
Animation.
For kids?
No, for everybody.
For grown-up kids?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, please. Just a minute, what happened to Don McPherson?
Don McPherson joined CBC as Director of Sports.
Back to the old womb. Wasn't he there before?
That's right.
And CTV?
And CTV.
Have you always been in the private industry?
Yes, I've always been in private industry.
How did you get a start?
Well, I got started, went to work very early in life to help support a family at the age of 14.
In Montreal?
In Montreal.
Bare feet?
Bare feet.
Poor little guy.
That's me.
I'm sorry for you. Father left you $1 million?
No. Father was a civil servant.
Well, he left you an index pension. Go ahead, please.
Yes. Did The Grey Fox get money from the Canadian government? That was a real fine film.
Yes, The Grey Fox did get money from the Canadian government.
What's all this praise? Go ahead, please.
Morning, Mr. Webster.
Morning, sir.
I would like to talk for a minute on censorship.
Yes, please.
Where does First Choice gets its censorship from? Is it from Ontario?
Actually, no, because censorship is a provincial matter, and that we have to apply on a national basis. What has now happened is that the standards and practices for a national basis has been presented to the CRTC 10 days ago so that we can have a unified approach to the censorship problem in Canada.
Well, let me tell you a piece of practical advice. You can take anything to the Supreme Court of Canada under the Charter and there won't be no censorship no more. Telling you that right now. I think it's abominable and horrible, but that's the way this new liberal Trudeau constitutional Yankee-style executive government charter is going to put it. No censorship at all. Abysmal. You agreed?
I think that I think you might have a point there.
And you people will take advantage of no censorship to show the grossest and most obscene thing.
That's not true.
I hope not, Jack. I take it back. Didn't really mean that much, but I'm serious about the charter.
No, I think what you're saying is correct.
I think it's dreadful.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Hello. I'd like to ask Mr. Greenberg a question about his thoughts on the structure of the Canadian film industry.
Structure.
I saw one advertisement for pay TV in which they were advertising a film which I saw in a tiny theater in Fort St. John and nowhere else, called Firebird 2015, made with recycled American hack actors, things like that. Why do we continue to see so-called Canadian films like this?
Well, let me just say that those are a film of an era where the tax shelter came in, and the only way that you could finance them, even though it was Canadian content film, is by what you've just said, the rethread U.S. actors. I think you're finding a lot more. It's kind of interesting that Porky's didn't have one name actor or actress in the film. It was just a good film. You're starting to see more and more of that now.
Thank you. Are the tax shelters dead?
Yes.
Good. After the break. I must admit, you're quite bright for your age and your background. This is Harold Greenberg, who is the executive something or other in First Choice.
Chairman of the executive committee.
I give you enough money to subsidize it yourself out of your whatever you got, the 125 million from Porky.
It helped.
Oh, I'm sure it did. You never thought you'd be wealthy, did you?
No.
Not when you were on your bare feet supporting a family at the age of 14.
That's correct.
Made up your mind you were going to be a big filmmaker. A big filmmaker. That's a private joke. He's private joke. He's twice the size of me. Go ahead from Williams Lake.
Good morning, Jack.
Good morning.
I welcome your guest. I'm glad to see somebody that's so happy. But I've been watching your show for the last 2 mornings, and it appears to me that it's just a get-rich-quick scheme for everybody, and technology is great. I enjoy watching your show. If you don't want to listen to me, you can cut me off. If I don't want to watch you, I can cut you off.
Fair's fair.
You know, and it just really bugs me because I'm just fighting to survive.
I don't get the message, love. I mean, I know what you mean.
Well, okay, all these fisheries, the wolves, everything, they're killing off mankind. They're killing Mother Nature before she has a chance to produce, and they're using all this technology, and they're using it faster than Mother Nature's developing it.
Where are you calling from, Williams Lake?
Where am I calling from?
Yeah.
Williams Lake, right.
I understand you're calling. Thanks very much. I hope I don't do anything to upset you. I only tried to brighten your morning and inform you a little.
Oh, I know, but I mean, I just enjoy watching all this
I know.
misuse of Mother Nature
I know.
and technology.
I'm exactly like Harold. I'm in showbiz. Isn't that right, Harold? From Terrace, BC. That was a sobering call. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Harold.
Hi.
How soon do you figure that your video releases are cutting into your box office receipts?
Well, in the United States, we have seen initially that there was a penetration into the pay television market, but that's totally changed because what has happened, the economies of pay television is quite good. You're seeing an average of 40 films a month. If you went into video to 40 films a month, you're sure going to pay a lot more than $15.95 besides all the other programming. So the initial stages, it does have an effect, and then after 3 or 4 months, we get the same party back on paid television.
It's like kind of like the video games which peaked and went down, didn't they?
That's correct.
Yeah, what I'm talking about there, Harold, is the cutting into the theaters, cutting off the theater where you get your first exposure, which you would like to have your first exposure on the theater screen, and you put it into video cassette, so it cuts off all your revenue off the theater screens.
Well, remember, the video cassette is not available until a minimum of 6 months after the feature film. But what you are getting right now is concentration of films that are being developed for the big screen in the theater, and that's what's happening.
Go ahead, please.
Hello?
That's you.
Yeah, no offense intended, but was the movie Porky's named after Mr. Greenberg?
No, but I guess when I read the script and saw the name, it hit a soft spot.
You don't mind that, do you?
No, not at all.
I mean, fat people are jolly.
That's right.
Look at us laughing. You're laughing all the way to the bank these days.
I'm trying.
I got a diet for you.
Is that right?
Yeah, I'll tell you about it
Okay.
later. Oh, no more time. Harold Greenberg, executive something or other of First Choice and the maker of $125 million of the Porky 3's coming out. And if you might be able to stand First Choice, I don't know. It's up to you.
I hope so.
I'm not going to knock my audience. I want people on cable. I want them watching me, not First Choice.
Oh, I'm sure they'll continue doing that.
Thank you, Harold Greenberg. I'll be back after the break. Today we get the lawn budget. Tomorrow we'll have a bit of an inquest on it if it makes any sense at all. But I have the Adam Zimmerman of Noranda, a man who holds our employment future in his hands halfway across this country. At 9 a.m. precisely. Paul Watson on the hot seat, and check at midnight. Zimmerman of Noranda and Webster at 9 a.m. precisely.